Good afternoon. So my legs, my feet are in very bad condition. The skin, the blisters are just on the feet are prohibiting from even moving, at least for a day or two. But I can move, but not walk or something like that too much. And I don't have, tremendous motivation for science. Even though I should say that after I uploaded the previous video in which I showed you remote electrolysis, actually later, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes later, it was actually much stronger. Way more impressive. But anyway, so I wish I would have taken the video a little bit later. So yeah, the current construction certainly is an evidence for remote electrolysis, which is of course an evidence for energy transfer, which is amazing. By the way, Merry Christmas to those that celebrate Christmas. No, I did not reset. I did not die. Nothing happened to me. I don't know why it's a mystery to you that I do not suffer by the attack that is initiated on Earth by the species that sent me as a messenger to Earth. Some would say that it's kind of obvious, but okay. No, so the obvious thing happened and it didn't hurt me. So the paintings from yesterday, even though they were done hastily, unfortunately, in many of my paintings, were done too. Not some didn't actually. Some took me were done throughout like a long time, but some were hastily. For all sorts of reasons. I'm pretty satisfied with the two Titanomachy paintings, even though they look now too similar, which is not good. I need so probably I'll introduce some changes later to the left one, so it will be like a little bit different, but not in effect, but just in or maybe like a small effect, because before that it was kind of like, it was the antithesis, because it symbolizes the fact that if I am walking on the earth, the spaceship should move and should get a little bit farther from earth, and now it symbolizes the same thing. Regarding the new paintings that was done yesterday, so it surely requires more work, but it's all painting. It's always like that. It's done with the left one from the top. The one from the right is an old small oil painting that I mostly added the Venusian background, like the pinkish purple frame, and a little bit just minor color adjustments to the life forms. But the left one was a new one. Just had the background, the blue background, and of course this signifies. You understand, like a destruction of the red and yellow neurons in the bodies that contain the red and yellow neurons, which is can only, of course, be found in creatures that invaded from Earth, because there is no cherub in Venus, and the yellow comes it comes from me. I thought about it quite a bit. Like theoretically, you could say, but maybe someone went to Venus just with the yellow neurons from your body, theoretically. So, and you theoretically you also want, to destroy this one as well. And the current symbols does not give this kind of because you can only see the bodies that have like the red ones, so so I thought about it, but the reason they go there is to get the red ones. That's the main objectives. I mean, in the past, they also, I mean, of course, went. I mean, in the distant past, it was like predatory sex trips of the worst kind that you can think of. And after that, it was the slave trade. But I mean, for a long time, it's mostly for the tea, and it is done by all sorts of cannibalism. So I mean, obviously, these kind of people have the red ones in their body. I mean, it doesn't make sense that they don't have it. I mean, at least some kind of it, or I mean, maybe they have it once they get there. Again, the Starship is modeled after the way that I see the Starship in Earth with my own eyes. Like this is based, like the top left, like what I discussed now, this is based on observation, on my own observation, like in Earth, like with the naked eye. Just, I mean, I think it's interesting, like, I mean, because, you know, I mean, the ones in the Titanomachy series, like with the black background, were created, I mean, almost 2 years ago. And this is like how I watch it with my own eyes. I mean, in these days, which is, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, I mean, you know, to watch it one side by side. The top left, I mean, so the new one is, I mean, I would say highly symbolic and highly not artistic, and I mean, certainly some, I mean, the most, I mean, you know, blatant problem, like, I mean, visually, is like the three symbols, like in the bottom, like the red and white symbols are too symbolic and of high contrast, and I mean it's kind of like it's not. So I mean I should reduce contrast by, I mean, you know, blending, you know, the borders, but this can be done later. And again, oil paintings are, I mean, allowed it. I mean, you just, you know, to wait a few days and then to blend more layers. It's actually even, sometimes it's even better to do it that way. Still, there is a question of like, what do we want to do in Earth, I mean, during the day, with regards to radiation. Do we want it to be the same like as during the night? Or maybe it'll be different? Actually, I mean, I would say that probably during the night, I will think about it in the next couple of hours. I mean, during the day, not during the night. It's not super urgent because, as I've said many times, I mean, you don't need a complete room, like, you know, with all the details, and probably you don't know all the details in order for the things to have effect. I mean, again, I started working on the stuff like years ago, and I mean, only very lately I actually formulated the idea of the Kerubian. I mean, only like about maybe 4 or 5, 6 or 5 months ago, I started to speak about like the Kerubian room, and to, I mean, even before that, I mean, it was done in an implicit way that I kind of like try to emulate both like the Kodesh HaKodashim and also the Ark of the Covenant, like, which is like the mobile version of that existed actually long before. I mean, actually in that case, like, I mean, the smaller mobile version existed long before, I will say, like the actual, like, I mean, the big thing, like, I mean, but yes, I mean, of course, they are based on the same model, like the Ark of the Covenant, and later the Holy of the Holy Chamber, like in the Temple of Solomon. So, I mean, actually, I mean, these kind of like images can be seen very early, I mean, in my artwork, but in the last couple of months, I kind of like try to formulate it. But you don't need the complete formula, I mean, in order for it to be in effect. It's just, I mean, and again, like currently, I mean, I do not use, like, I mean, and mostly, I mean, what you've seen in the last couple of months, and still, I mean, you don't seem like much contrast between the day and the night, because you don't have to have this kind of feature. But I mean, sometimes it's actually very. Sometimes, many times you want to actually, like I mean, opposite effects during the day and the night, or different effects. But I mean, I'll think about it. Most probably, I mean, I would say that during the day, radiation should be in full effect, but only on humans. Because you can ask, I mean, why should you radiate yourself? Like, I mean, with the yellow background. So again, I want to be cleaned of the red mirrors that people are placing me. Like, I mean, I also require some cleaning, you know, because I'm defiled by the people around me with the life forms and the red mirrors and all sort of stuff. But I mean, during the day, probably, I mean, only people, like only humans, I mean, should suffer from it. In general, Titans, then they don't like to be very active during the day. Probably they don't like the sun, or at least in Israel it's like that. Maybe in other places it's not that like important for them. But they are more, I mean, it's actually, it's not at all true to me. Just, I mean, another one of the million reasons why, I mean, it's obvious that I'm not a Venusian. Like, I mean, I don't have any problem with the sun, and I walk, like, I mean, I hike all day in the desert, and I've done so many times. But I mean, it happens. I mean, at least in Israel, they don't, which makes sense because I mean, you know, Venus is covered by clouds, so it's actually, it makes sense that they will prefer, like, I mean, more shade. So during the day, probably the radiation will affect mostly humans, but I'll think about it. Now I wanted to say something that I've said many times, but it's so important that I should just repeat myself. The main problem of humans is, of course, the ego. I mean, what can be said that has not already been said, you know, thousands of years ago? And the ego in our time is bigger than ever. And the ego, I mean, takes many forms, many shapes, and there is like one specific kind of, like, I mean, manifestation of the ego that I want to mention. It's really it's kind of like, I mean, it's relatively new because it's predicated on all sorts of, like, I mean, ideas that were mostly presented to the public in science fiction, which of course became popular, I mean, only during the last couple of decades, and mostly since the 1970s, even though it was started to be popular by the 19th century. So I mean, some humans, like, I mean, have kind of like a notion that, yes, I mean, probably other sentient species exist, and maybe they are even technologically advanced. But I mean, even if this is the case, still humans have superiority, like a tremendous superiority, I mean, related to these all other races, because they have a special synthesis between the, like, the rational thought and the emotional, I mean, capabilities. Sometimes this is even this stupidity is accompanied with pseudo-biological explanation that are completely not correct regarding, like, presumably the brain structure of humans. And I will not even mention it because it's just plain stupidity that shouldn't even get, like, I mean, any kind of stage. It's Facebook science, you know, in more than one way. And this kind of stupidity and vanity in the current situation might actually be the last straw or the last nail in the coffin of humanity. So that's why it's so important to actually mention this specific stupidity, even though, I mean, there are so many other stupidities that, I mean, characterize as humans. Because some people think, I mean, along those lines, they think that, okay, I mean, yes, there are other creatures, not only the Venusians that are inferior to us technologically. There are other creatures in this universe, and we understand that they have starships and they can move faster than light. They can throw asteroids at us, and they have starships the size of moons or small planets. But, most certainly they cannot comprehend the complexity of our social structures and our emotional capabilities, because most certainly they are kind of like robots. I mean, they are good at mathematics and physics, as demonstrated by their ability to build starships and throw asteroids, but they cannot understand how, I mean, our emotional capabilities and like our interpersonal relations, and certainly international relations between nations, because it's so complicated and it relies on our special presumed synthesis between our ability to think rationally, but also to incorporate emotions into the presumably pure logic in which other creatures, sentient creatures, I mean, are using for whatever actions that they do. So, because of that, presumably, yes, we understand that these creatures, I mean, can kill us in any second, and we, the Homo sapiens, understand it. And we understand that these creatures, I mean, they have demands from us. They want us to do things. But, this is the issue is the but. There is always a but here. But, we will not do whatever they want us to do, not because we think they are stupid, but because we have superior mental capabilities because of our special emotional capabilities, and also our very intricate and complex political structure. And these creatures, they are like a robot. They think just in a logical way. So they tell us, you must take our representative and his daughters out of Israel using force, because that's how they think. They don't understand the intricacy of diplomacy. They don't understand that such actions should be done in a moderate way, using established channels of diplomacy that, of course, are mostly done, in covert ways and very, very intricate and sensitive ways. They cannot understand the sensitivity of the situation. That's why these creatures, they present demands that it's not their own interest that we will actually comply with. And we, humans, Homo sapiens, presumably know better than them how to serve their interests, because of our emotional and logical synthesis, but moreover because we understand our own political system much better than them, and we know how things should actually be done. Now all of that is, of course, just one more manifestation of the ego, and it's not of particular interest, but what makes it important at the current situation in human history is that this will probably, again, be the last nail in the coffin of humanity. This particular esoteric science fiction version of the vanity of humans might now, where we stand right now, 2023, almost 2024, Christmas 2023, might be the last cause why there are no more Homo sapienses in Earth. The ability of Homo sapienses to abandon this ego, this stupid version of vanity, and to do it immediately is, a necessity in order for some humans to exist. The creatures that created these spaceships, you are not superior to them in any possible way. Your intricate political systems, your emotional capabilities, the various hemispheres that you think you have in your brains, they cover all of it, millions of years ago. Okay? And you need to understand it. When they tell you, you need to get our representative, Noam David, and his two daughters, Orin and Hila, outside of Israel, with the mouth closed, without communication at all, with only arms and legs moving, and it should be done now. If that's what they tell you, it's because this is your best interest. They have no reason at all to tell you false advice. Why should they lie to you? Lying is the tool of the weaker side. Why should the side so strong lie to the weaker side? If they want something from you, they would just take it. They don't need to manipulate. They don't need to lie. They tell you the truth because there is no interest for them to lie to you. And they tell you the truth. The truth is simple. The best interest of humanity is to rescue Noam David, me, and my two daughters, Orin and Hila David, out of Israel now, using arms and legs with zero communication. Zero communication. This is the best interest of humanity. They don't lie to you. And they are not wrong because there is nothing that you know that they do not know. Nothing at all. You don't have any hemisphere in your brain that they don't already had millions of years ago. You don't have any form of art, of science, of emotion, of political system that they didn't already have millions of years ago. And you cannot possibly theoretically conduct a synthesis of thought that they cannot do. They already synthesize every possible thought, and the conclusion was given to you. And this conclusion is your best interest. So the question that now is only left for you to ponder with is the ancient question of what's more important, life or ego? This is the only question. What's more important, life or ego?